What's up guys? This is Ryan with Horton Barbell, and in this video I'm going to be talking about 10 of the best alternatives for trap bar deadlifts. Now trap bar deadlifts are an amazing exercise. They're great especially for beginners to start to learn that pulling position from the ground, how to get set up properly, and how to be able to drive from the floor and be able to maintain that good body position. But sometimes trap bar deadlifts just aren't an option. If you're like me and you're working out of your home gym, trap bar deadlifts are expensive. They take up a lot of space. So you may be looking for an alternative to trap bar deadlifts. And if you are, you're in the right place, because I'm going to talk about 10 of the best alternatives that you can do in place of those trap bar deadlifts. Now the first two exercises that I'm going to give you are going to be pretty obvious. And those are the two different deadlift versions that you can do with a barbell. So you have conventional deadlifts to where your feet are starting inside of your hands and you're deadlifting from the floor, which is going to be basically exactly like a trap bar deadlift, just with a barbell instead of a trap bar. And then the other one is the sumo deadlift. Sumo deadlift is done with the wider stance where my hands are now inside of my feet, but the back position setup, the drive from the floor, a lot of the form and a lot of the technique is exactly the same, but with a barbell instead of a trap bar. So number one and number two, conventional deadlifts and sumo deadlifts. And then number three is another deadlift variation, and that is deadlifting from blocks, also sometimes known as pin pulls. And basically, a trap bar is really good for not only beginners, but a lot of times trap bar deadlifts are really good for taller athletes or taller lifters, or also good for lifters that have maybe a little bit of low back issues, and pulling from the ground can sometimes aggravate it. And the reason for that, most trap bars have raised handles that allows you to start a little bit further off the floor than a traditional barbell. And deadlifting from blocks, lifter blocks is used in weightlifting, or deadlifting from pins in a rack, the safety racks in a rack, can kind of simulate that same raised level up off the floor that can make it easier for a taller athlete or a taller lifter, or can make it easier sometimes for lifters who maybe it's uncomfortable for them to lift directly from the floor. So number three is deadlifting from blocks, also sometimes known as pin pulls. The next two alternatives on the list, number four and number five, both involve a kettlebell. And that's going to be a kettlebell deadlift and a kettlebell swing. So a kettlebell deadlift is basically the exact same movement pattern, just done with a kettlebell instead of a trap bar or a barbell. So if you don't have a bar, let's say you're on the road and you've brought your kettlebell with you, it's a perfect alternative because it's the same movement pattern. The only issue with it though is a lot of us don't have a heavy enough kettlebell to actually make these worthwhile. So if you've got a 25 or even a 40-pound kettlebell, you're going to have to do a ton of reps to actually get some work in. So the alternative to that is to turn it into a kettlebell swing. And a kettlebell swing is basically just an explosive version of the same movement pattern. So instead of just standing up and down with it, you're actually going to drive with your hips and you're going to drive the kettlebell and you're going to turn it into an explosive movement. And that's actually going to get you a lot better work done than just a kettlebell deadlift. So number four, number five, kettlebell deadlifts and kettlebell swings. So number six on the list is an RDL or a Romanian deadlift. So this is another exercise that's done generally with a barbell, although it could also be done with kettlebells, could also be done with dumbbells. So depending on what type of equipment you have access to, RDLs could be an option for you here as an alternative to trap bar deadlifts. It's a lot of the same movement pattern. It's a slight bend of the knee instead of a full bend of the knee coming from the floor. But you're going to get a ton of posterior chain work. It's going to work the back. It's going to work the glutes. It's going to work the hamstrings. It's going to work a lot of the same muscle groups that trap bar deadlift is going to work. So RDLs is number six on the list for trap bar alternatives. So number seven on the list is actually my favorite alternative for athletes when it comes to any type of a deadlifting movement pattern, and that's clean pulls. And clean pull is kind of like we were talking about the kettlebell swing earlier. Clean pulls is essentially an explosive version of a deadlift. So a clean pull is an Olympic lift variation. It's basically the front end of a full clean or a power clean, coming from the floor to full extension with the hips and the knees and the ankles. And so if you're an athlete or if you're someone who's even playing in the softball league on the weekend and you want an exercise that's going to be an explosive, powerful movement, you can trade in your trap bar deadlifts and you can switch it to something like a clean pull. So the eighth trap bar alternative is a dumbbell deadlift. Now I'm going to be flat out honest, this isn't one of my favorites, but if dumbbells is all you have to work with, it is an option. So you're trying to do the same movement pattern that you're doing with the trap bar or you're doing with a barbell, but you're going to do it with dumbbells. Now you can either do it with one dumbbell holding the head of it, and it's going to make it look more like a kettlebell deadlift that we talked about earlier, Or if you don't have a really heavy dumbbell, you can put one in each hand and you can still do your deadlifts and still follow that same movement pattern and get a lot of the same benefits out of it. It is a little bit awkward using dumbbells as opposed to some of the other pieces of equipment, but they can get the job done if dumbbells is what you have to work with. Now, the ninth alternative to trap bar deadlifts is using a machine that's called a hammer strength squat lunge machine. Now, we never called it that. We always called it a hammer pull machine. But essentially, if you see them in the gym, they're plate loaded on each side. It's a hammer strength machine, and they're going to have handles on both sides. If your gym happens to have one of those, you're going to grab the handles, you're going to set yourself up, and you're going to do deadlifts exactly the same as you would do with that trap bar or with the barbell. So if you're lucky to have one of those in your gym, if you're really lucky and you have one in your home gym, those are an absolute great alternative for trap bar deadlifts. The last alternative for trap bar deadlifts that I'm going to share with you are tire flips. So again, just like the hammer strength machine we talked about a second ago, if you're lucky enough to have access to one of those giant tires that you can flip around, tire flips can make an excellent deadlift alternative. You're going to start basically in a very, very similar body position with hips down and flat back, and you're going to be driving those hips to flip that tire over. They're also great if you need just to add some variety into your workouts. You're getting tired of doing kind of the same thing over and over again. Going out and flipping a tire is fun and can add a lot of variety to your lower body lifting. So there you have it. There's, in my opinion, the 10 best alternatives for trap bar deadlift. So if you're working out of your garage, you're working out at home, or even your gym doesn't have trap bars and you need something to replace it with, hopefully one of these exercises, no matter what equipment you have access to, whether it's a barbell, dumbbell, kettlebells, one of these is going to work for you trying to replace those trap bar deadlifts. If you like this video, do me a huge favor. Go down and hit the like button. It helps me out a ton with the YouTube algorithm, and it also lets me know that you like videos like this so I can make more of them in the future. And then make sure you hit the subscribe button so when I do these videos in the future, you don't miss out on them. Until next time.